Are you skeptical about candidates that call themselves a 10x engineer? We had one candidate declare very early in their interview that they are a 10x engineer. I almost wanted to say, you mean 10x the tech debt? How common is this, and how would you challenge him to prove it? It's usually very evident who is a true X10 or better engineer. This can be from the resume, or from being widely known by name, or from performance at interview. Personal recommendations from a trusted source work too. However, anyone in this class does not call themselves a 10x engineer. The 10x engineer is a well-known idea. And I actually agree that it's true that a well-trained, motivated, knowledgeable and experienced engineer will be able to produce 10 times the usable output of a mediocre engineer. Anyone who describes themselves as a 10x engineer, though, goes straight in the too arrogant to bother with pile. It sounds like a situation where the Tywin Lannister quote, "Any man who must say I am the king is no true king," is quite apt. Any man who says I am king is no true king. Did they also discuss the size of their penis? Any other weird flexes? I guess that sort of covers whether or not they have the necessary soft skills to work as a part of the team. I would not be able to stop laughing if I ever heard someone saying they are a 10x developer. I've worked with a lot of engineers and it shows when someone is really good. A common trait those engineers have is humility. People that claimed that they are above others were among low-average performers. And often were very young people just out of school because they had very high GPA. I would not bother further with a candidate making those kinds of claims. Especially at the first interview. Imagine 5 days a week. WTF is a 10x engineer. Instant no hire. Nobody with zero social skills is going to 10x productivity. Well, then I guess it's time for us to solve for X. Actual 10x engineers don't call themselves 10x engineers. They come into work, get their 10x shit done, and go home to their wife and kids. Are beyond conceited to portray themselves in that manner up front. I very much doubt most 10x engineers whose value is debatable would actually describe themselves as such. I'm a big believer in a no brilliant jerks policy. If a candidate said this in an interview, I would immediately move them to a strong no evaluation. Self-descriptions as a 10x engineer or very productive makes me immediately skeptical. The best engineers I've worked with have generally been quite humble, but have a long history of making outsized impact. They can give a list of impressive impact they've personally made in the last couple of years, and love to dive deeply into the details and trade-offs involved in each project. I'm a 10x engineer, but the 10 is in 2's complement binary. I would assume that they meant 10x the asshole. 10x the competence and not even interview them seriously from that point. I had to look this up because I have never heard it in my long career. Apparently that means they can be 10x more productive than the average engineer. That's quite frankly impossible, especially for an extended period of time. I wouldn't discount a candidate for saying this because people say all sorts of wild shit to impress you in interviews. However, I would be very skeptical. IDK, but I used to joke with my manager that I'd 10x engineer the product straight into the ground, trying to churn out bugged code if that's what they wanted. Anyone who says they are a 10x engineer is no true engineer. Tywin Lannister. Show, not tell. Talk is cheap. I mean, he might have been a 10x engineer compared to his peers at the previous workplace. The question is whether or not he is a 10x engineer at his new employment. Not difficult to be 10x in a particular domain. For example, there are plenty of 10x LeetCoders. Working in the same industry for 20 years, you can get to 10x via domain knowledge. But saying that you are 10x in general seems like bragging. Is that like the guys who keep calling themselves alpha males? 'Cause if you have to say it. Real 10x engineers don't announce themselves. They pretend to be 1.5x to ensure manager and peer happiness. Or they hang out at our overemployed. You will never encounter a 10x engineer who calls themselves a 10x engineer. If someone has both the ego and lack of social skills required to make such an over-the-top cringe statement, those same qualities will necessarily prevent them from really being a 10x engineer. Being a strong engineer requires good social skills and the ability to put your ego aside. We only hire 20x engineers here. Sorry. No one calls themselves a 10x engineer. I'm not just skeptical. I'm downright hostile if I see this come across my table. Absolutely. Same with influencers. Hey, I'll decide if you can influence me, thanks. 10xers don't refer to themselves as such, so I'm more calling BS than being skeptical. I know 10xers and they are not looking for that kinda recognition, cause all that really ends up doing is just getting into doing more work. People who blast about their programming abilities like that are the equivalent of people who drive oversized trucks. If I ever heard someone say this about themselves unironically, I could not take anything else they said seriously. It is like someone calling himself alpha male. If someone calls themselves a 10x engineer, they're likely not a real 10x engineer. Any man who must declare himself king is no true king. Tywin Lannister. Did you ask the candidate how is he or her 10x? Not skeptical at all. You don't want this person in your team in any shape or form. Good developers, engineers are hard to come by. And they don't call themselves that. I have a team of over 100 people under me. Let's say I have a little experience in building technical teams. Most often people that use too many buzzwords or promote themselves too much at interviews are not actually good at the job. This is one of those things where calling yourself a 10x engineer is just cringe to me. If you are truly one, then you show it through your work and how you carry yourself in the workplace. Needing to be identified as one publicly or needing to tell somebody you are one just raises mental flags that this guy is probably going to be a pain to work with since they think they are hot shit and smarter than everybody else. LMAO. Anyone who self-identifies as a 10x engineer are likely mediocre at best and obliviously inverse at worst. In either case, you'd get someone that's arrogant ad nauseum. To be stupid enough to spout that on an interview leads me to believe you're dealing with a moron. Didn't the whole 10x term come from Grant Cardone, a brainless and heartless charlatan who sells sales courses to other morons? Anyone who uses that term is a grade A idiot. 10x what? Why say 10x with no term after it? What a douchey phrase. First time hearing the term 10x engineer. The only way you're outputting 10x is working 996 12-HA day 6 days a week. I am a 1x engineer. Everyone else is just a 0.1x engineer.